If you enjoy truthful and heartfelt conversations to inspire you to become a better version of yourself, empowering stories will help you. Hello, Daksha. How are you doing?
Hello.
I'm so delighted to have Daksha here because I've known Daksha for years now. And every time I see her, she gets more and more light coming out of her. And that's coming from the heart. And that's because Daksha keeps growing and growing and growing massively. And not only that, she helps other people or she assists other people to be able to see that grace that we all have inside, but under a ton of layers, yeah? Tons and tons of layers. And Daksha is a top trainer for Joe Dispenza, and whoever follows this program already knows who Joe Dispenza is. And she's also a practitioner in the Heart Math Institute, something that I also mention quite a lot because those are such powerful tools that I just keep bringing them up on the hope that you use them as well. Daksha, welcome to the program, and please let us know about your trip on empowerment.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. Can I just say, first of all, I'm really grateful for the fact that you've invited me to speak to your audience. Really, really grateful and appreciative of the opportunity to do that. I love what you said about my light is shining brighter every time the more we get to know each other. And you know, that's so true because I think in this work, we all have to work on the layers. Sometimes we think we've dealt with something, and then the next thing pops up. And I really like that. I like that analogy of how the more layers you take off, the more your light shines through. I really like that analogy. So it has been an interesting journey for me. I grew up in a very traditional Asian family. I have three brothers. My youngest brother has now passed on, and both my parents have also passed on sort of recently, really. My father this year in January 2021, and my mother in November 2019. And it's interesting. It's an interesting journey when they're alive as parents, and then it's another whole new interesting journey once parents have moved on. And I think for me, growing up it always felt very difficult, very like a real battle, because I think in my heart I knew that I wanted to be a certain person, and but my parents had a very different idea of the kind of person that I should be, and there was this huge gap where what their thinking was and where my thinking was. And it's really interesting because I think I often think that maybe I am the black sheep of the family. I didn't follow all the rules. I broke a lot of rules. But at the same time, as I grew older and let's say a little bit wiser, I've learned to really make sense of sort of other people, meaning my parents, because they have been a huge, huge influence in my life. And I think a lot of my strengths, but also my limitations, come from them, my upbringing, my traditions, my culture. And I think that is the journey that we all probably go on, where when we reflect back, there's so many things that I'm grateful to my parents for, but at the same time then there's that balance, isn't there, between some of the limitations as well, that you sort of take on their limitations because that's what you grow up with. And when you're younger, you're none the wiser. You don't know what's right and what's wrong, and you're not always able to figure out what's right for you, so you take on that. And then you start going through that process of, okay, is that really me? Is that something that I've done because they did it? And you really question sort of some of these habits, because really that's what they're called. They are habits that we get into because that's what we've seen other people do, mostly the people who influence you the most in life. And I guess Even last weekend, I was cleaning out my kitchen and I decided, that's it. There's so much stuff. I really don't need like 150 plastic boxes just in case they might come in use. And it was like, I could hear this voice in the background, and it was my mum's voice saying, oh, maybe it'll come in use and you should hold on to it. And I was like, no, I'm not listening to that voice anymore. So it's really interesting how sometimes these things influence us as we sort of go through our adult life. And also you mentioned about, being one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's certified trainers. So I should just qualify that I am part of a global team. There's probably about 140 global trainers, and we deliver Dr. Joe's work across the world. Um, and also, yes, I am certified heart math coach as well, which I absolutely love because the two really work hand in hand. And like you said, Anna, they are really amazing tools. And they are all tools that have really helped me on my journey. And I think without those tools, I really don't think I would be the person that I am today. So I am incredibly grateful to Dr. Joe's work. I'm incredibly grateful to the heart math work as well, for helping me get to where I am today.
Yeah, you certainly are a product of your product. And I've seen Daksha delivering the workshops year on year on year, and every time she gets better and better and better. But don't hear me wrong, she started at a very high level already. But you're so good at reading the audience with that kindness, but being professional at the same time, and with such patience and calm. You bring calm, and that's just amazing. Maybe that's something that you learned from your parents. Maybe that was in you. Maybe they highlighted it. And something that I think that is that our parents are there to show us what we agreed to learn some time between one life and the next. I do believe that we come here many times to learn the lessons, because one life obviously is not enough.
Yes.
Obviously, is not enough. And they can show us either the side A or the side B. So if they want to show us about abundance, maybe they are very tight with money and with everything, like what you were saying, holding the boxes there. That's a kind of not abundance. That's not thinking abundantly.
That's lack.
A person who thinks abundantly,
Yes.
thinks whenever I need a box, it will show up.
Exactly.
It will show up, and I can always go to the shop and buy a box if I need it.
Yes.
So that's abundance. But that's the way maybe your mother was showing you and teaching you about abundance, so that you become aware. But sometimes in one lifetime or two or three, we don't realize, and we think this is the way to do it. I'm going to hold on. In my case, it's bags. It's plastic bags.
Okay.
Boxes, it's bags.
Okay.
So I hold on to the bags in case I need them.
Oh, that's so funny.
And food. I always have a lot of food just in case. But that's coming from the scarcity in my childhood, because I didn't always had the things that I wanted to eat, or the bags that I needed to go to school. So I just keep to them.
And I think, Anna, it's really interesting what you say. And like when I think about my parents, they came from India, and they didn't have a lot of money when they first came to this country. They lived with another family, like another two other families in one house. And things like a plastic box. It's really interesting. Now, when I think about, oh my gosh, there's so many plastic tubs. How many plastic tubs do I need in case? And like in your case, you were talking about plastic bags. And when you go to India, and when I did go to India for the first time, plastic boxes, plastic bags, they are such precious commodities. Because they don't, one, because it costs and people don't have a lot of money. So if you do have something like that, then you want to hold on to it. And plastic bags and things like that, again, are also very precious commodities. And I can now understand why my parents were like that. And they were incredibly resourceful. So they didn't have a lot, but what they did have, they made a lot of good use of. So again, for me, it's about learning to be resourceful. That was something that my mum was very, very good at. There's when I look back and I think about my parents, there were lots of things that I didn't like in terms of the way that they were bringing me up and their values and some of their thinking, because I found it very limiting. I found it very claustrophobic. Um, but what I'm really grateful for also is that I don't know where that strength came from, but I didn't always just comply. I am a very compliant person. I'm not somebody who likes to get into trouble, and I know that even now. But there's also something inside of me that sort of says, no, that isn't right, and I will find a way around it. So I might not be so direct and say, no, I'm not doing it. I might go, okay, and then go away and do it anyway. But that's my personality. So it's really interesting, and I think my mum and my father, they were both very, very different people. Like, and another example I'll share with you is I decided that I was going to run the New York Marathon, and this was my first marathon. I didn't want to run the London Marathon. I wanted to run the New York Marathon, and it was for charity. It was for the charity that called Muscular Dystrophy, which is what my younger brother had. And I remember saying to my mum, "Oh, I'm going to run the New York Marathon," and the first words that came out of her mouth was, "Well, you can't do that." And I remember saying it to my dad, and my dad said, "When is it?" So that was the contrast between my mum and my dad. And my mum came from a very, again, I totally understand where, why she had that mindset. Um, and for me, it's always about just reflecting on those things and then learning from those, and then sort of being very mindful of where that residue still exists. So where are those little things that still pop up in your life now? So it's really interesting, even though they have both passed on, they still influence how I live my life. That's how strong those influences are.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're there forever. I still feel my father. He passed on when I was 27 and I'm 55 now. So it
Yes.
was not like last year, but it's still there. I'm still learning things from him. But now it took me a long while, but I can see them from the other side.
Yes.
So rather than feeling that resentment, now I can feel I know where this is coming from. I understand.
Yes.
The thing saying, "Oh, I love you so much for what you taught me." Mm.
Not quite there.
Not quite there yet, but at least I don't feel that fear. I don't feel the resentment. So
Yes.
I'm kind of in the neutral side already. So
Yes. And
brilliant.
this is a lot of the the work that I deliver, in terms of the Change Your Mind, Create New Results program, is all about how do we change. And for me, what I love about the Change Your Mind, Create New Results program is the fact that it provides you with a formula for how you make those changes. But also, I truly believe that the information also helps you to really understand why change is challenging, because it's not easy, and it's something that I work on a day-to-day basis, and I'm sure it's something that you work on a day-to-day basis as well. And I think at the moment it's at the forefront of my mind, because I think we get into the end of the year and everybody's going to be thinking, oh, 2022 is going to be really different, and I'm going to make this resolution, I'm going to make that resolution, and it's going to be really different. And then
So,
by the end of January, it doesn't feel any different. So I think it's something, and to be honest, the work has really it saved me, really saved me in so many different ways and at so many different levels. And so that's why I feel really passionate about the heart math work, and also the work that we deliver that Dr. Joe has created.
yeah, I completely agree with that. I've done that program 4 or 5 times now, Daksha, and every time I learn something new. Every time.
Mm,
We need the constant reminder because our mind is very clever. And
yes.
the monkey mind goes to the same groove, on the same groove over and over. And just by, even if it's just by sharing it out loud, by becoming aware of what we're thinking, that's a massive step. But then you share very powerful tools. Would you like to tell us something about that program?
Yeah, so Change Your Mind, Create New Results is a proprietary program that was developed by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it came about because he was actually speaking to a large audience of businesses. I think there's probably about 300 to 400 businesses in the audience. And I think at the end of that presentation, the people were saying, "This is amazing, but what about businesses? What are you going to put in place to support businesses, because businesses need this." And
Yeah.
so that's why that program was born, and it was designed specifically to be delivered into organizations, into the corporate world. And if people are familiar with Dr. Joe's work, you'll appreciate that he does go into a huge level of depth at his own workshops. And we don't go into that level of depth when we're teaching this work to the business world, because it's simply designed for people to understand that work, even if they are not familiar with Dr. Joe's work.
Mm.
And basically, for me, it is a program, it's a change program that really empowers individuals, really provides them with the information and the know how of how to make those changes. And so, it doesn't mean to say that it's easy. Some of the tools are incredibly simple but incredibly effective, but it doesn't mean to say that they are easy. And I know one of the tools is we use a breathing tool, and we get people to just sit and breathe. And even through my work on the heart math, as a heart math coach, when I say to somebody, "Can you find 5 minutes in your day just to breathe in a certain way?" People will say, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that's great, no problem." Actually, when you then say to them, "So how did you do it? How often did you do it?" And it's like, "Well, I got really busy, and this happened, and I didn't do it, and I know I should have done it, and I didn't." And for me, that in itself is such powerful learning, because if sometimes they're really simple things that you can do, but just finding 5 minutes in your day to do something like that can be very challenging for a lot of people. And that's why change is really difficult. It can be really difficult, but it is about being it's about understanding what sits behind that, and what sits behind that are a lot of the unconscious habits that then influence your behaviors, that influence how you think, that influence how you feel. And it's those unconscious habits that are actually running the show. And a lot of people like to think that they're in charge, and they're not.
Yeah. We go through the day just following the same thing over and over, going through the same wheel. And just by telling ourselves, okay, I'm going to sit down here and I'm going to breathe for 60 seconds.
Yes.
I have one of these watches that count steps, and I have a breathing tool here. We freaking have 60 seconds. And if we don't, it's because we don't love ourselves enough to do that, to give us this space, because we do have those 60 seconds.
And again, if you cannot find 60 seconds or 5 minutes in your day to honor yourself, to love yourself, to care enough about yourself to do this, then making any kind of changes is going to be challenging, isn't it? And I often say that sometimes as humans, we want something complex, because we think that if it's too easy, surely that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we're always looking for something complex. It's like, what, breathing? I do that all day long anyway. So why, what difference is that going to make? Give me something juicy. Give me something complex. And
Yeah.
the point is that if you're not doing the easy stuff, if you're not doing the simple stuff, you're not going to do the complex stuff.
It's simple and it's cheap.
Yes, it's free.
So for some people is, I need to go to India and stay in an ashram for 9 weeks and then I'll be sorted. Bloody hell, stay at home, breathe for 60 seconds, increase it to 5 minutes, and you will see a massive difference.
It's so true. It's so true. There was a point in my life where it was probably in my 20s, I was figuring out who I was. I'd started in the world of work, and I was presented with lots of challenges. I was living away from home. There's lots and lots of things going on. And I remember um, there was a planned trip to India, and I was going to go to India with my parents. And a friend of mine gave me a book on Buddhism, and they were saying, because I sort of started taking an interest in Buddhism and reading about Buddhist philosophy. And they gave me this book, and I was thinking, when I go to India, it's all going to be really everything's going to be sorted, my life, I'm going to come back a new person. And I remember we were on this train, we were going from one village to another city, and I was reading my book, my Buddhist book, and there was something in there, there was like a couple of sentences which basically said that most people sort of travel the world to escape their problems, and actually what they don't realize is they take their problems with them because the problems are in here. And it was such an aha moment for me. And I was like, wow, all my life, like everything could be okay when I leave home. Everything could be okay when I get another job. Everything could be okay when I'm with this person, or it was just escape, 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 escape. And
Yeah.
after you realize that actually you cannot escape the problems because they're all in here. So wherever you go, you take them with you.
Yeah, and we repeat them. What you were saying about work before, I was thinking about transgenerational stuff and about family trees and all that kind of information. I've been reading a lot about that lately.
Hmm.
And what happens at work is that for our subconscious mind, work, the workplace, is another family again.
Yes.
Think back and think about your bosses. Have they always been the same? Look at your work colleagues. Can you see your sister, your brother, your mother, your aunt, your ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, whatever it is? Can you see them there? Maybe you don't realize, but you're just repeating the same story. You're spending a lot of time in an environment with your own family again because you're going to see them and you're going to reproduce them again.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's the really interesting thing about life, isn't it? That, one, you attract back into your life what you put out, so what are you putting out? Because that's exactly what you're getting back. And I think the other thing is that if you don't learn the lesson, it just comes harder the next time.
Yeah, big blow in the face, exactly.
To get that slap in the face, you just like whoosh, you get knocked over. It's like, what
Yeah,
did that come from?
yeah.
And the funny thing is, it's like, we all kind of get really surprised, like, oh my gosh, why is this happening to me? And then you go, yeah, I created it.
Yeah. And also our partners, our spouses or partners or the person that we're closer to and we have a romantic relationship. If you dig harder inside of you and you think, what are the things that piss me off the most about this person? Write them down. This is a proposal. Write them down. And then write down the things that piss you off more about your father and your mother. And you see how they overlap.
Yes, definitely, definitely. There's definitely a connection.
Yeah.
I've never done that exercise, but I think I might do it over Christmas just to have a when we think about how we feel about other people, sometimes we have to then ask ourselves that question, don't we? To say, so how is this person actually showing up within me? Who? Because I thought sometimes we are that person. We are also being that other person, but in a very subtle way. But we somehow rationalize that as that's not the same.
Yeah. How am I being my mother? How am I
Yes.
being
Yeah.
my father? And that's something that scares us
Yeah.
because we want to run away from that. And the more we run away, it stuck like chewing gum in your hair.
Yes. It's like my mom was never a risk taker, and I'm not a risk taker. She was always very um, safe. Her decisions were very safe. They were very calculated, and that's me. And yet I resent that in her because I think, oh, if only you could have been different. But it's actually no, that's me also.
Yeah. And is it you, or is it you learned habit?
Yeah, and this is what you've got to work out, isn't it? This is where I have to think: is it me? Is that now part of my personality, or and because they're learned habits? So for me, what I have to do is when I'm sort of faced those types of situations, I have to go through this sort of conscious process where I have to really challenge my thinking, and I have to challenge the way that I'm thinking about something. And then I have to go, okay, so is this a habit? Is this an unconscious habit that's keeping me safe? Or, am I willing to sort of change that? Am I willing to change the way I've been thinking about this or behaving about this or feeling about this? Am I willing to do that? And I think for me, that's something that I try and consciously do to challenge the status quo,
Mm.
because it's a difficult one, because you don't know, and you could easily say, well, that's just who I am, but actually, is it, or is it a learned habit? And that's something that you have to figure out. For me, that's part of the process of evolving and empowering yourself, and being more emboldened in the way that you kind of do things or approach things. But you
Yeah,
have to challenge yourself.
I'm thinking, Daksha, and you know that I'm a huge fan of this work. I practice it every day. I keep loads of notebooks. And one thing is on the paper, another thing is challenging the status quo, as you say there, on on the everyday practice of being yourself and going through life. Somebody listening could say, oh my God, I can't be thinking everything I do all the time, because then I wouldn't get anything done. It's like I'm going to write my shopping list. Do I need to think, oh, I'm using my right hand and I prefer this pen rather than this one, and the paper is like this, and I'm leaving all this space on the side and I'm reusing the list? And do I need to think all that? Or I can just be going and living life and then sit down a while for thinking about stuff? How does this practically applies?
Good question. And I think, there are times throughout the day where we all go unconscious, without a doubt. And I think for me, it's about remembering the times when it's about changing that balance. So let's just say you are 100% unconscious throughout the day. So for me, the work is sort of starting to change that balance. So maybe on a moment to moment basis, you can just take, after you've done something, after you've written an email or something, you could just go for 30 seconds. Okay, I'm just going to be present. I'm just going to become conscious, and become more present about, the fact that I'm sitting on this chair, the fact that I'm typing on my keyboard, and just remembering those things. And then you can go and carry on with whatever it is that you're doing. And I think a lot of the times it's just those little things where you can start to tip the balance. And again, only you will know, because this is a very individual practice. Only you will know sort of how unconscious you are throughout the day. And it's no different to when we were talking about breathing. If you can just find 60 seconds to breathe, then you are conscious, you are present. And if you are conscious and you are present, then you are no longer unconscious. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Finding those moments throughout the day just to become more present with what you're doing. And I loved what you said when we were in Westport in Ireland. And I loved what you said, which is, when you're loading the dishwasher, or when you're loading, when you're putting your dirty clothes into the washing machine, just become present and be grateful that you're actually doing this. The act of putting clothes into the washing machine, be grateful. And that for me is being conscious, that is being present.
Mm.
So yes, it's a chore, yes, it's something that you have to do, but I think the act of becoming conscious is becoming more present, and it takes you out of the, okay, I got to load the dishwasher, got to do this, got to do that, got to do that. There's a difference. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely. And the context is that I'm so grateful because I don't have to wash things by hand.
Yeah.
Go to the river like my grandmother used to do. Yeah, we do have the time. We do have the time. When we're driving from one place to another, we can talk to ourselves out loud. We can plan something. We can reflect on the fact that we have a car that takes us from one place to another and we're warm and comfortable, rather
Yeah.
than saying, oh, he caught me. Maybe he's in a hurry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just becoming mindful of those little things on a day-to-day basis, and the more you do that, the easier it actually becomes. And really, what you're doing is when you're doing that, you're just really stepping out of the autopilot mindset that you're in, and what you're actually doing is creating a bit of space to then say, actually, could I think about this differently? Am I just doing this because it's routine and it's familiar and it's easy and it doesn't take any effort? But actually, if I would just created a bit of space, can I think about how I might do that differently? And is there another way of looking at this? Is there another viewpoint? And that's what it does. Becoming more conscious and becoming present allows you to see different possibilities, allows you to see other options that maybe you haven't considered because you're so you're on that hamster wheel, and when you're going round and round and round and round and round, you can't think differently, you can't behave differently, you can't feel any differently. So you have to come off the hamster wheel to then go, oh, okay, maybe I can look at this differently. And that's really for me, what on a day-to-day basis, that's what it's about. That's the practice on a day-to-day basis.
Mm. The other day, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she's a coach. Before she was a coach, she was a carpenter.
Ah.
Yeah. And she was saying to me, to everybody that I become in contact with during the coaching sessions, I'm telling them, find some time for doing something that you love.
Mm.
And myself, she was saying, I was not applying that because I wanted to write a book on restoration for years. But in my mind, I had all these hours ahead of me, or even days or weeks, to sit down and write a book. And then I said, no, I need to become the product of my product. So every day I'm going to dedicate 1 hour, every day, or the days that I have that 1 hour. And when I talked to her, she said, I finished the book yesterday.
Oh, amazing.
But it was 1 hour a day. So I would say, I'm sure you would subscribe to this. What is it that you would love doing? And do it for a little bit. 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is about, when I talk to people about self-care, self-care isn't just about, self-care includes physically looking after yourself, mentally looking after yourself, emotionally looking after yourself, and also looking after yourself spiritually. And, when you find time to do those activities that you really enjoy, it's amazing how it quietens down the mind. You become lost, in time, and you might have only been doing something for, like, 20 minutes, but it feels like you've been doing it for 2 hours because it's, you're so engrossed, you're so involved. And it's amazing. It's an amazing way to just, give your mind a rest and put your focus and attention on something that you really enjoy. I've got a friend who's writing a book at the moment, and they were saying, I just commit to writing like 1,000 words a day, and that's it. you know and so 1,000 words a day means that eventually he'll get to his limit. So it is just about, I always say, when it comes to changing any kind of habits or changing the way that you're doing things, always think about taking one small simple step. So sometimes when I deliver my workshops around well-being and habits and performance, people often say, oh, I'm working till 1 o'clock at night. And then I say, so what's the new habit that you want to create? Oh, I want to go to bed at 10 o'clock. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's 3 hours that you're looking to shave off your day. If you try and do that, you're just not going to succeed, because there's just going to be so much pushback. So I always say, instead of going to bed at 10 o'clock, maybe for the first week, go to bed at 12:30, and then go to bed at 12, and then go to bed at 11:30, and gradually, change the habit. But you've got to take small, simple steps. And then that way you're less likely to feel the resistance. You're less likely to make those changes. And so really, in any kind of change, just really think about how you can make it so simple, one small step that is going to enable you to succeed. And the other thing is that change doesn't happen overnight. You know that, Anna. You and I have been doing this work for how many years? I've been doing it since 2015. When I first came across Dr. Joe's work, and I'm still doing it. And there's still more to uncover. There's still more to discover. And it takes patience. It takes time. It takes patience, and you have to be very compassionate to yourself. There's no point in beating yourself or being hard on yourself or judging yourself. That's just not helpful. It's not helpful.
Yeah. But then when we look back, all those little steps, they amount to a huge amount.
Yeah.
Every time I see Daksha, her radiance is bigger and bigger and bigger. So maybe you don't see the small changes adding up,
Yes.
but I can see them, and everybody can see them.
Yes.
And because you are being different, the world is different to you as well.
Yeah. And it's the small wins, isn't it? It's every day. It's those little tiny small wins which are just as critical, just as important. Because like you said, Anna, they all then mount up to something big. And you might not see it, but other people will definitely notice it.
Yeah. Keeping a journal could help. Having some friends. Last night I met with the Empower Group, the investment club. Amy is the chairperson. And she asked us at the end of the meeting, share with us a win that you would have had during this last month. And you should see each one of the ladies smiling. And it doesn't matter what win it is, because for you, a meeting and celebrating with others is massive. So you should see the shift on the energy.
So important to remember that often if you've been doing something unconsciously for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and then you try and make a change, then that's not going to be achievable or realistic in 5 days or 5 months. It's going to take some time. And I think for a lot of people, it's about just having the change around the mindset about what change actually means. It is a process, it is a journey, and you have to be patient.
Amazing, Daksha, as always. It's such a pleasure. I feel so much calm in my heart every time that I interact with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you so much that it makes me feel emotional every time I see you. Pity that I cannot hug you and squeeze you.
I love you too. The feelings are mutual.
I know. When people want to contact with you, beautiful being.
So I have a website. It's called www.your-mind-at-work.com. You can email me, and if you want to contact me directly, my mobile number is 0781 579 3597, and that's in the UK. But I also hang out on LinkedIn. So if you
We'll
want
put the links. We'll put the links
if
underneath.
you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that would be great too.
Excellent. Daksha, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Sending you lots of love.
Bigger.
Definitely.
Love you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna.